You may now apply. You may now apply your 3D glasses. 3D glasses. As we proceed. Prepare for proceed.
Hey, this is not an election between two candidates or two parties. This is a choice between two fundamentally different visions about America and how we move forward. There's a stark choice. I believe we should give tax breaks to companies that are investing here in the United States. Mr. Romney wants to continue to give tax breaks to companies that ship jobs overseas. I think that's the wrong way to go. You know, when we save the auto industry, Mr. Romney said, let's let Detroit go bankrupt. I said, let's bet on American workers, and now the American auto industry has come roaring back. And I believe that manufacturers will come roaring back here in America if we make good choices.
Vote Obama! 3Decide Obama!
The selection is a choice about whether our kids can attend college without a mountain of debt. Let me share something with you. Back when Barack and I were first starting out, so in love but so broke, our combined student loan bill was each month was actually higher than our mortgage. And I know there are a lot of people who can relate to that, because that's how we pay for education. So when it comes to student debt, believe me, Barack and I, we've been there. And that is why Barack doubled funding for Pell Grants and fought so hard to stop student loan.
All right, 3Decide Obama.
The Republican nominee, Mr. Romney, and his new running mate, Congressman Ryan, their view is that if we give tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans, and we get rid of all kinds of regulations that help make sure that our air is clean, our water is clean, regulations that we put in place to protect consumers from unscrupulous lenders, regulations that we put in place to make sure that women are getting equal pay for equal work. Regulations to protect workers and consumers. And that somehow, if we get rid of that stuff, then somehow the economy is going to thrive and prosperity will trickle down on everybody. Now, the problem is we tried it for a decade, and it did not work. They have tried to sell this top-down tax cut fairy dust before.
3Decide Obama. How you, baby?
He wants all of our kids to fulfill their promises, all of them. And that is why he's been fighting so hard for the DREAM Act. He's fighting for responsible young people who came to this country as children, through no fault of their own. They know no other country but America. They were raised as Americans. Because your president believes that these young people also deserve a chance to go to college. Because people are hungry, deserve the country they know they love. This election is also a choice about keeping our country safe. So I want to remind you that after 10 long years of war, and share this as you go out to the land, 10 years. After so many of our heroic men and women in uniform served and sacrificed and gave their lives, Osama bin Laden is no longer a threat to this country. And you will remind folks that your president kept his promise and brought our troops home from Iraq.
Don't take pictures crazy, man.
Cody, there's a camera.
Michelle's even fighter in 3D, baby. Yeah!
3Decide Obama.
We've got a real problem with our debt and our deficit. It is a medium and long-term problem. And what I've said is, let's go forward with a balanced approach to reduce our deficit, getting rid of spending that we don't need, but still making investments in education, still making investments in basic research, still making investments in rebuilding our roads and our bridges. Let's make sure that we still have a strong Medicare and Social Security system, and make sure that the most vulnerable among us are cared for. Well, their idea is, let's have another $5 trillion tax cut on top of the Bush tax cuts, even if it means gutting education investment, even if it means we're not rebuilding America, even if it means voucherizing our Medicare system, even if it means that we are weakening the safety net. And this $5 trillion tax cut is not to lower our deficit, it's not to help invest in America. This $5 trillion tax cut would be used basically to give folks like me or Mr. Romney an additional $100,000, $200,000, $1 million that we don't need. And we're probably would be hard pressed to spend.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our new 3D website.
Oh, terrific. 3D.
Okay.
Here you go, Rob. Yeah, I'm good.
Strengthen the housing market, circulate in the economy. That's a choice in this election. Decade of war, I said it's time to help Afghans take responsibility for security in their own nation. That's a choice in this election. Helping the children of immigrants who have grown up in this country, lived in this country, are Americans in everything except having some papers, not sending them to countries that in many cases they've never even been, but embracing them and giving an opportunity to put a stake down here in the country that they love. That was the right thing to do. Mr. Romney's got another idea. That's a choice in this election. So, on almost every issue, whether it's clean energy, we've doubled fuel efficiency standards on cars, doubled clean energy, created jobs around the country. We can create more. Mr. Romney's got a different view. On student loans, Mr. Romney says kids, they should just borrow money from their parents, not realizing perhaps that some kids might not have parents whom they can borrow money from. That's a different point of view. It's a different vision about how America should work. And in all these choices, what's at stake is whether or not we're going to continue to be a country where everybody's got a shot, where we're building a strong middle class, where the story of someone like me, raised by a single mom, who can become the President of the United States, and a young girl who grew up just a couple of miles from here down in South Shore, whose dad had a blue-collar job, and mom worked as a secretary, can end up as the First Lady of the United States.
3Decide Obama.
You guys taught me that no matter how bad we may be outspent, no matter how much we may sometimes be counted out, when the American people focus in on the values that we hold most dear, when we focus on what's best in us, when we remember the story of our own families, our parents and our grandparents, great-grandparents, some who came here as immigrants, some who came here in chains, folks who went through hardships we can't even imagine, but somehow said to themselves, you know what, I may just have a low-paying job right now, but I can imagine if I work hard, maybe my child will own a business someday. You know, I may not be able to go to college, but I can imagine someday my child going to college. That persistence and resilience and grit and hopefulness and optimism that says we are not bound by the circumstances of our birth. We can shape our own destiny. When the American people focus on that, then amazing things happen. Now that's what we saw in 2008. That spirit coming to the fore. And as tough as things have been, that spirit is still out there all across America. I see it every single day. We just have to make sure that we're fighting for it. You know, I used to say back in 2008, and I didn't have to tell you guys because a lot of y'all have known me for a long time, I'm not a perfect man. And I said I wouldn't be a perfect president. But I promised you that I'd always tell you what I thought. I'd always tell you where I stood. And in your stories, I saw my own. In your grandparents, I saw my grandparents. And in your kids, I saw Malia and Sasha. And I've kept that promise. Every single day, I've been thinking about you. And I still believe in you. And if you still believe in me, and I'm willing to fight with you, and I'm going to work with you, if you are as determined as I am, to keep bringing about hope, to keep bringing about change, if you're ready to finish what we started in 2008, we will not lose this election. We will keep going forward. We won't go backward. And we'll ride the road while the United States of America is the greatest nation on earth.
Obama.
3Decide Obama.